Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. Today I'm joined by Quinny and Acsom. The football's back, Assom's back. Lots to be cheerful for, gentlemen. We will be covering everything else. We'll be covering the action. We'll be covering all of that kind of stuff, the aftermath of that as well. And I think we also need to, look at the narrative, guys, right? And the big thing for me is whenever there's going to be action in relation to Celtic, you're going to have a compliant media with friends within Celtic who'll try and run a story. I've been reading a few stories today, one in particular from the Herald going on about basically the action being a damp squib, which is far from the truth. And then you've got other people who might not be in favour of the action who are putting out stories to say there were thousands of Celtic supporters going against it and taking their seats. Well, we have the figures, and we know from experience of the 1990s that you've actually got to count people in their seats and going into the stadium. And here are the final figures. There were 815 Celtic fans at Rugby Park who took their seats before the 12-minute walk-in. And there is an allocation of around 4,100. So the split was actually 75% for the action, 25% against. And that, I think, is natural. And a lot of people that went and took their seats, it was through mobility or they were there with their kids. It wasn't they were going against what they believed is a good campaign. So there you go. It's interesting, Quinny, when you actually look at the figures, isn't it? Rather than just a narrative that seems to have been skewed over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I seen a picture as well, and for anyone that's been to Rugby Park in the away section will know, I seen a picture of everyone when they were like not in the stadium yet. I'm not sure any more people could have hung around there. It looked pretty packed, so I kind of took it as like the people that maybe did go to their seat, it was a wee bit, the weather was bad, you've got mobility and kids, that sort of stuff, is maybe just a wee bit of, right, well, there's no room to stand outside the stadium, so we might as well just get in and wait for everyone else to catch up sort of thing. So, yeah, I didn't, it's always going to happen, isn't it? 'Cause it was one of the talking points coming into the game was the 12th man, the 12th minute stuff. And I think Brendan was even asked about it in and around the game as well. One thing I wasn't too sure about, by the way, is obviously the board got pictured. Are the board normally at away games? I thought that was unusual. Am I wrong in that?
No, they're always represented. I mean, I think the big thing, Quinny, was the absence of Mr. Lowell, who was also absent from Brendan Rodgers' press conference on Friday as well. I'm pretty sure we'll touch on that. Assom's buzzing because he's been off for a few weeks, so he's got lots to say about all this stuff. No, but normally they would be there, Quinny, and it's the same at Celtic Park. There's always representatives of the opposition up in the director's box as well.
Fair.
But I mean, listen, this is part of an escalatory campaign. Obviously, we are going to be conducting further discussions, etc., in relation to next steps. But obviously, with the main, and I mean, I've got it right here. Actually, I've got the outcome of the survey. People were saying to me on Facebook the other day, and I know that Facebook versus Twitter versus Instagram, it's a different world out there. But it did say here: would you endorse and participate in a late entry protest? Now, that was part of the survey that was completed by 40,000 fans, and the vote was 93.7% in favour of doing that. So people go on about why you're doing it, it's self-serving, you're doing it for clicks and all that. It was done on the back of quite an extensive consultation process. Assom's absolutely buzzing to talk about the football, all right. So let's do that. Let's do a wee bit of that. Eh? It's been a while, Assom. I want to start off with Daizen Maeda, because obviously there's been a lot flying around the Daizen Maeda question. He gives his interview in the Japanese media around his own future at the football club. Brendan Rodgers spoke about it, talked about the fact that he knew he wanted to leave since February. Incredible how he showed such great form in that second half of last season. And he gets the goal today, 2 goals and 2 assists in 8 appearances for Daizen. And as much as it was a tremendous goal, great assist as well, the celebration as well, I thought spoke volumes.
The celebration, puts paid to anyone who might have thought that Daizen's checked out or, lost that hunger. I think that was great to see. A really well taken goal, as you said. The goal itself was a thing of beauty, brilliant cross and lovely header. But you just love seeing that passion from Daizen. That's kind of been an easy time for him, on the back of obviously the comments he made, and then obviously Rodgers confirming it at the press conference as well. I wouldn't have been surprised if he wasn't in the starting lineup yesterday. So the fact that he was given the nod to start and then got his goal and to respond like that, brilliant to see. And Look, we've seen it with many players before that, you know, when they're wanting a move, how they can down tools. I don't think that will be the case with Daizen. I think Brendan spoke about that as well. He's not that kind of character, and yeah, he's had a bit of a slump in form maybe this season, as have many in the team. Naturally, when you know you're on the brink, or you think you're on the brink of a move, these things can happen. But now that you know he's not going, you just hope that he can knuckle down and rediscover some of that form yesterday, and hopefully the goal is the start of that. But yeah, it's good to be talking about the football again. First time I've felt that kind of feel good factor yesterday at the end. You know, when that goal went in, you're off your seat, you're celebrating. We've not had a moment like that yet this season, and it was just good. It felt like, you know, that's the way it should be. But that's not to then, you know, obviously ignore or detract from obviously all the side going issues. And I think that's the difference this time. You know, I've spoken to people who were there yesterday, and they said there was real strength and unity. You know, of course it's going to be talked down potentially, but you know that's large numbers still that were part of that protest. This is just the beginning. You know, we've got a run of away games, but then you know when the home games come along, we'll see some stuff as well. So yeah, a great win yesterday, a really good moment, and we'll enjoy that and we'll talk about that today. But I think it won't take away from the other, and that's what that's what often happens, isn't it? As soon as Rangers are in trouble and we're ahead domestically, that all stuff kind of gets put to the side. But I think things are different this time. There's a real sense of movement, but it's good, like I say, on the flip side, that we can actually enjoy the football. You know, enjoy the end of the game yesterday, and maybe a bit of positivity now going forward.
No, I think you're right. It's that unbridled joy of a very late, I was going to say last minute, but it was 95th minute winner from this penalty spot. Big pressure and all this kind of stuff. But absolutely, Asim, and I echo that. It is important because obviously we all love Rangers getting pumped no matter who they're playing, Quinny, especially by the team that you've tipped to be second this season. I've got to point that out.
Move.
Got to point that out. And you did that probably months ago, never mind weeks ago. And obviously,
May.
Yeah, was it me? Oh, there we go. By the way, I think we'll go back to that time and time again this season. And then obviously we get that, and it gives you the bounce and all that. But Asim's right; it's important that we keep turning the screw. By the way, I say that the stand holds 4,100. Celtic's allocation of tickets for Rugby Park is 3,835. 815 fans went to their seats. They were not crossing a picket line. They were not being shouted at or any of that kind of stuff. You know, everybody has got the right to their own decisions in relation to this. So yeah, I think it was very, very positive all round. And you're talking about the boardroom response to that, Quinn. There's a few comments coming in, and we'll touch back and forward on it. What was your take though on Daizen? I really did. I think, you know, watching the celebration back and all that, wasn't he quite kissing the badge, but he was that emotional. He's grabbing the badge, and you know, we can read into everything. We're going to do that anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, it was very eye-catching because, like Acsom said, Daizen doesn't really celebrate goals really at all. You know, never mind wheeling away towards the away end, grabbing the badge. And like you, I was watching, like, is it, you know, are we getting a kiss of the badge moment here, or what was going to happen? But the celebration really told you everything. And again, the comment section are all quite in unison in that way, that if Daizen's bought in and he's going to commit everything for as long as he's here, no one's got any issues with him, of course. Don't think anyone would grudge him the move that he would have gotten at that time or whatever. So there's no love lost or anything like that at all with it. I did find it interesting though in the aftermath that although Brendan Rodgers like gave him his kudos for the goal and all that kind of stuff, Brendan was also quite keen to highlight it wasn't that great today, you know, like, and when has he ever said that about anyone else that's been playing up front recently? I just found that a bit funny, and maybe does lean into he's only going to be here till January, so he can maybe be a bit tougher on him in public and know there's maybe not a can to carry for it for the rest of his relationship with him as much or whatever, I don't know. But if he's going to hold him to those really high standards and we're going to see him, you know, like throw it all out there for us again, then yeah, it's great to see that he's really tapped in. And you know, it was funny in terms of how he played in the game. The goal was great, but it's one of those few times, like, I've been watching it back for my analysis. It'll be out on Celtic here later today if anyone fancies it. But it's one of those moments where it's good that it's caught on the TV cameras, but you see it all the time when you go to games from Daizen and formerly of Kyogo and other ones, where they're on the shoulder and they're saying to whoever's got the ball, like, play me in, I'm going to make the run. And Sriracha just spots the arm gesture, just spots the movement, and great ball. And a great finish, and we don't make enough of those chances. You know, Kilmarnock really kind of set themselves up for it. There was a few moments in the game where, you even go back to the first half early on, McGregor plays a lovely ball through for Taneki's first one-on-one with the keeper.
Yeah.
It's basically the exact same situation. That big left pocket is just vacant, just acres of space in it. So it was great that Daizen was, you know, because that's what's been missing up front, is that finisher instinct, to be at the right place at the right time, put it all on the line to get connection of the ball and make it happen. So
yeah,
it was great movement from him as well. Because again, the sequence, if you watch the goal back, it starts on the left and he works himself between the three centre backs before the ball ends up coming back in. So great effort. And yeah, I get where Rodgers is coming from and saying he didn't have a great game or anything. It's not like he grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck or was a constant threat or anything like that on the ball. But it, you know, when you've got that arrowhead up there, those chances hit the back of the net, and we benefited that for once this year.
Massively great assist as well. I've got to say that. I want to talk about the fullbacks, Acsom, because obviously we're in a situation now where we're playing what could only be described as our third choice right back through injury. But it's great to see Colby Donovan coming in. I always felt, not just this season, but last season in the pre-season games, he stood out. He actually did, even last season during the pre-season. So he's come in. He looks like someone who's not going to be a rabbit caught in the headlights. He just gets absolutely wired in, rough around the edges, which you would expect from anybody coming into the side. But I've got to say, I thought him and our left back, I thought they were decent. They were decent. You can tell, obviously, they've not played many games. It was a defensive unit that's not really played. I think they've maybe played 18 minutes of football together. But Donovan, absolute pass marks for me.
Yeah, I think both of them. I think decent's the accurate word to describe both of them. I think there were some moments where they were a bit careless, maybe in possession. But ultimately, I've really been impressed with Donovan. I think similar to your favourite Tony Ralston, when he broke onto the scene, he's physically ready. Donovan, you can see that he's a unit. He looks very athletic. He looks like a player that's been about for a while. So I think that's going to stand him in good stead. And I think even just on the ball as well, you've seen how well he did for that to get us a penalty at the end. That was him, that he beat the fullback, got the cross in. So I think he's got a lot to offer, and I wouldn't mind seeing a lot more of him. I think there's definitely promise there, and I like also Sirachi. I thought his cross was brilliant, and just two kind of steady performances he's had now. When he came on in the derby match as well, and that kind of quality for the delivery. That's what you want to see from your fullbacks. Very different player to the kind of what we're used to in terms of Greg Taylor last season, and obviously even Tierney this season. We've probably yet to still see the best of him, but I think he looks like an able backup. And as you say, we're playing, without our first choice fullbacks at the moment. So yesterday in a tough fixture away at Killie, that for us to come away with the 3 points and then to both, I think, get pass marks, that's encouraging.
It is. I remember an unfamiliar defence at Rugby Park in Brendan's first season back, and it was a shambles, remember? And so watching that at the weekend there, I was really chuffed. As you say, Colby Donovan has kind of slotted in there with no fuss on the left-hand side. We're looking at a left back who's the third in a succession of kind of short-term loan deals, if you like. And he comes in due to the fact that Kieran Tierney was injured for Scotland over a couple of games. There's a lot of concerns. I've heard a lot of chat, particularly on the socials, Quinny, in relation to Kieran Tierney. I've got to say, I'm not that concerned at this stage. I think he's taken a knock. He's missed a couple of international games, and he starts the game on the bench. I was having a wee look at his stats because I seem to remember the St Mirren game, the opening game of the season. Tierney was the best player in the park from you. Him and Johnson were creating. And across the season, no one has more assists than Kieran Tierney so far. I've been fairly impressed, and Brendan's spoken about the fact that he's kind of easing them in, if you like, Quinny, giving them game time until it gets to the point. I think maybe the games that stand out are probably the Rangers game and the two European games, where if you're bringing a prime KT back, you're hoping that he can perform in those games, and he didn't. And maybe that's the reason why a lot of people think he's not really been as effective. Do you have any concerns about that, Quinny?
I think in terms of so with Tierney, first of all, like, we all knew what we were getting in for with Tierney in terms of like I was looking at this last week. but he played like 6 months in August, 6 matches in August, I beg your pardon. And that's like the most football he's played in about 3 years or something like that, if not longer. And I was really worried he was going to play for Scotland because, again, you just need to look at, I think it was the season at Sociedad, especially where he was getting back on his feet. He was getting a good rhythm of form. And then the Scotland games piled on top of that. And it kind of seemed to fizzle out. So I read the Scotland, withdrawal as more being like, I'm sure he was injured and also had a knock and stuff like that, but more like managing him and just like, listen, this is just came too soon for me. This window of, just been to Kazakhstan and back and and he's had to play from the start, basically every game to this point. So I think, but considering the situation, you're always going to get diminishing returns on a guy like Tierney. If he can only play 5 games a month, he'll be brilliant. He'll do great. He'll get up and down the line. I think in the first couple of games, we've seen him like really like get into that left wing position, maybe once or twice a match in the first couple of games. Yeah. And now as the games have went on, like off the bench yesterday, done it once that I noticed, certainly maybe it was twice or more, I don't know, but that's happening less and less. And he's kind of tapering back. And that's kind of compounded the situation we've had in the wings, because when you've got Ralston in for AJ as well, that's a different kind of dynamic of a player and whatever. So I think you've felt Tierney's diminishing returns because the wingers haven't been able to keep up the slack.
Yeah.
And with Sriracha, like I'm seeing a lot of guys in the chat saying like first half he was terrible or he was, I think he played great the whole game. Now, did he miss a few passes? Did a ball go out for a throw in off him and stuff like that? Like, yeah, but again, like what is the standard we're holding these guys to? Is it to be 100% perfect, never miss a pass, never let a throw in go by you? Like what are we actually asking? I thought he got around the pitch really well. And he was direct when he needed to be, and a guy that was happy to go into those forward areas and play the forward ball. So I thought Sriracha, he's delivered what we all thought Maxwell was going to be. Like he's solid, that Uruguayan kind of mentality. He won't let anyone boss him about the pitch or anything like that. And when he gets on the ball, he'll move it forward, kind of thing. So I thought he was great for the 58 minutes that he played. And Kobe Donovan, like anytime we mention him or we see him playing, I'm always just reminded, like I seen him play a lot of B team football in the Champions League like last year. And I've got this like really strong vision of me writing in my notepad, will not be mugged off. Like he just doesn't really get on the wrong end of anything. Yeah. And it's one of these compliments that's not, it can maybe be taken as a criticism or whatever, but he just doesn't do anything wrong. There was a moment in the game yesterday where he did lose the ball, and it was similar to Murray maybe a week or two ago. He recovers right in, and it's a big tasty slide tackle to knock it out on the halfway line for a throw in. And yeah, if he does get caught out of position, he's got that really good like athleticism, like you have mentioned, but he's also got that really good game IQ for like just get back and correct the error, and then we'll reset from there. So, if he can play another match or two the way he did against Kilmarnock, I would probably have him over Ralston at the moment. Really good engine, really good physicality. And you've seen it in the second half, because second half he get let off the leash a bit more to help Forrest. And someone in the chat highlighted it, but Donovan's a huge reason we get that penalty at the end. Wouldn't, like, it's like a dog with a bone, just would not give it up. Mm-hmm. And charged it all the way down to eventually for the cutback for the shot that's the handball effort. So I thought Donovan was fantastic considering the context.
No, without a doubt. And it does pain to say that he's pushing Ralston for that jersey. Yeah. Here we go. Lots and lots of great comments coming through. Thanks everybody for supporting the channel as always. That includes Barry James. We've got Pete McGee coming in to say Sriracha was great, as was Donovan. The thing was, you mentioned Laxalt, seeing how we're in the kind of rhythm of naming ex-left backs. I'm going to name an ex-left back that he put me in mind of when he started kind of going rogue, and that was Alexandro Bernabe. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but remember Bernabe used to just break ranks and he would pop up. Maybe I'm being unkind on him. Maybe it's more of a Greg Taylor thing where he was drawing himself inside and he was spending a lot of time in the centre circle kind of thing. But yeah, I was getting Bernabe vibes. By the way, we did all right on Bernabe. We did all right with Bernabe, didn't we? So, my biggest frustration with the left back scenario is, we have had 3 in a row that have come in on loan who we have not kept. They've not been part of the bigger plan. They've all been short term, but hopefully that doesn't affect the player. Pinball, you're in. Also like Sriracha, think he brings a lot. I was getting moaned at on the Facebook yesterday because apparently he's called Sriracha, but Sriracha, potato. Aye, who knows? Right, here we go. Lots and lots of great content coming through. Move Balikwisha to the left wing, and Tunekte, who we'll get to to the right. The latter looks like he could play anywhere, in my opinion. We'll talk about the wingers in just a second, but before I do that, the starting 11 comes out. You're always looking at the bench, Acsom. You're looking for options as the game goes on. You're looking at Rugby Park thinking, yeah, we gave them a right tanking last season, but generally it's a tight game at Rugby Park. What options have you got on the bench? What I found interesting is that Simpson-Pusey, obviously Osman's never really featured. Maeda and Inamura were all missing. Ross Doohan, you'd probably expect him to be missing as a third choice. But that's 4 signings that have come in, 4 or 5 signings that have come in who are not featuring they're in the larger match day squad, but they're not making the bench. Acsom, I mean, is it a concern? Is it a concern for you, do you think? I mean, or does it just go back on some of Brendan's previous comments about recruitment?
Yeah, I think it just speaks to the fact that these were club signings as it's been put out, not guys that he identified or gave the thumbs up to as key contributors that can come into the first team squad of the quality that he was looking for. The fact that Kenny and Maeda weren't on the bench yesterday.
Good point. I never mentioned Kenny. Yeah,
I know Kenny wasn't a kind of permanent signing this summer. Oh, we extended his contract, but just again, it just shows you that the manager clearly didn't fancy these guys as being of the quality required, but we brought them in, and even for the players themselves, what development are they getting from this kind of setup? So yeah, it just kind of speaks further to the frustrations that we've got in terms of any kind of strategy with regards to recruitment. But I thought, obviously I've not had a chance to kind of speak about it. I know you guys have, but I thought Rodgers was brilliant in his press conference on Friday before the game. I know you spoke about it last week, Paul John, in terms of what we want to see from him now after all this, which was just knuckle down and show how good a manager he is, and not kind of now keep going on it. But I thought he got the tone perfect. He said everything he needed to say. I think we all know that Brendan never misses a trick. With every phrase, with every comment, with every wink, I thought he was brilliant. He got all the messages, the key messages across. I think the fans would have taken to that press conference and realised exactly what's going on. But ultimately, as you kind of alluded to last week as well, I think he's more determined than ever to make sure that he wins the league again this season and has another successful season despite the negligence that's been shown. So yeah, that for me is encouraging. In terms of the lineup yesterday, it was good to see a bit of freshness. I know we're going to talk about the wingers, the positives and the negatives there. I guess if we're the equivalent, I'll be Balakwisha, you can be Daizen, and Quinny's Tenecti. But starting with the positives, Tenecti, straight away you see a guy that you're excited to watch, and reminded me a bit of Jota, with his flair, and he's constantly wanting to take a guy on. So that to me bodes well. I think that's the kind of player we've been crying out for. The end product, that will come, I think, as well. That's something that hopefully you can work on, and to come into a pitch like that and a fixture like that and straight away be our kind of standout player is very encouraging.
No, you're spot on. And by the way, we'll tap back into the Rodgers press conference because, believe it or not, we've not really had much opportunity to talk and focus on that. In relation to the wingers then, because I have obviously got carried away because I'm a football fan and you're allowed to. And I have said, I've not said we do we have a new hero on the wing? And I'll tell you what, it was a good start. Obviously, he should have tracked back for the goal if you want to be ultra critical and all this kind of stuff, but he'll learn that. I was bigging him up from minute one because he had a long sleeve jersey on, as would I, Quinny, to hide the arms that looked like threads hanging from my top. In my respect, obviously, Acsom could go short sleeved and roll the sleeves even further up if he wanted. But it was a tale of two wings, really, Quinny, because Balakwisha, I was looking at this morning, believe it or not, on the Celtic official website, and it says that he's played 123 minutes of football, Balakwisha, for Celtic so far, and he's had one touch of the ball in the opposition box. I think that kind of says it all, eh?
That is an interesting stat. Touches in the box isn't one that I've had a look at. I feel bad for him in the Derby game because I did feel he was out there all on his own. And to be honest with you, like in the first half, Negren was kind of popping out wide and trying to help him out. Donovan wasn't too far off the picture. But in a lot of this game, we were focused down the left. We were going down Sirachi Tuneke. Negren was trapping over to the left-hand side as well. And again, he was basically on his own, up there. Now, there was a few moments where the thing with Tunetke's kind of like got that kind of, for lack of a better expression, I'd say that kind of Ange personality where there's like no excuses. I'm on the ball. I'm going to take my man on. I'm going to go for it kind of thing. And Balikwisha, it feels like he could do a bit more. I think that's what we're all kind of feeling from it. But in terms of being in a wide position and what he's been offering for the first 2 games, like, I don't really think he's had really a proper bit of support around him, whether it be Noales or Johnson, like at the weekend from playing right back. And by the time Donovan's allowed to attack, Sirachi's off for Tierney and Forrest is on. And that's when we kind of switched our onus of focus, if that makes sense. And Balikwisha is off at that point also. So I'm happy to give him a bit more kind of latitude in that way. But I don't think there's any hiding in the fact that he should be doing a bit more when he's on the ball. You know, when he is, you know, the stats I was looking at, I went to, before coming on, I was going to go try and double check it. I've got him in 0 missed passes at the weekend. His corners went into some really nice areas as well, where we're unlucky not to get on the back of them. And again, some of the chances, you think about Negren's sitter, the chance he had where it gets cut back in from the left, he takes 1 or 2 touches before striking it. Balikwisha's free at the back end of the pitch, you know, to be squared on. So again, we're talking about wingers. I said with Tunetke when we seen the highlight reels and we were signing him, like from that point, he looked like the best player we'd signed out of obscurity compared to Yang and Palma. And the thing we used to always say is if you could put Yang and Palma together, you'd have a player. And that is kind of Tunetke. You know, he's on the front foot. He'll dribble people like Yang does, but he's a bit quicker than Yang, and he's a bit more like, as soon as the defender blinks or looks to kind of move their kind of body, he kills them. He'll make a decision. He'll just nip the ball and go for it. And I don't know, like we're yet to see him hit some bangers or anything like that, but his distribution's a lot closer to Palma's and Yang's. You know, he can actually find a man. He's got a few variations, like that wee toe pokey one he did with the outside of his right foot for the handball chance kind of thing. Like, again, we don't get any sort of player that's had any of that, do something a bit different, just make the most of the situation in the wide areas since Jota, which again, a lot of people are kind of comparing him with. And Jota's arrival is very similar to Necky's arrival, just somebody that's just coming out of low expectations. And when he's on the pitch, he's like, give me the ball and I'll run at people. So very clearly the man of the match in the game, made the biggest impact. And again, when you get Balikwisha on the other side, that's where Balikwisha doesn't really have any excuses, because this guy is just trapped in and he's taking people on, he's making things happen. And there's no reason when you're on the ball, you couldn't be doing a little bit more. But the Swedish League, last thing I'll say on it, there's a fair amount of artificial pitches in the Swedish League. The Swedish League kicked off a few months ago. So I thought he wouldn't start this game down to the jet lag and the Tunisia stuff and whatever, but he is quite similar to what we've had before with the Japanese signings, where we signed them and they're already playing, they're already up to speed. So really shouldn't have been a surprise in a way that he started the game. And yeah, I think he started off brilliantly. The only way is up.
Yeah, the only other thing in favour of Balikwisha is the fact he was playing on the right. And when you look at the amount of football he has played, it's a smaller percentage on the right-hand side. I think he's more of a natural left winger. So, yes, it's always great to see new players coming in. And the one that I have more concerns about than any other at this moment in time is Simpson-Pusey. He strikes me as being a guy that's come from a Manchester City setup whereby he was getting first-team football last season. He played Champions League football for Manchester City. He's come to Celtic and he's hit a brick wall. Now, I know that Brendan had already said, listen, we'll see him after the international break, so this is maybe part of the plan. Would it surprise you, though, if he was sent home early? Remember Jeremy Aliadier? Was that his name? Remember we brought him in under Strachan? Played in that Media Bratislava game, lasted 5 minutes, away back down the road. Have you any concerns about this, do you think, Acsom, Simpson-Pusey?
I don't think he falls into the category of the other signings that we mentioned, which is the club signings, development players, call it what you like. I think Pusey was brought in to be a contributor. It seems, by all accounts, I don't know, I've not heard anything for sure, but there have been murmurings that there's something about his attitude potentially. And again, we don't know the ins and outs, but didn't he put something up on Instagram as well yesterday? I think, one of his stories or prior to the game. I'm sure I've seen that online as well, where just obviously seems frustrated that he's maybe not getting game time. There was rumours last week about refusing to train with the B team. We don't know, and that's the thing. When you don't know, you're going to speculate because you're thinking we brought this guy in. It's been a couple of months now, and he's nowhere near it in terms of featuring. And just Rodgers' comments about it doesn't seem too reassuring in the sense that we're looking forward to getting him involved. It's kind of dismissive. So yeah, it's not. I think we've got Trusty out injured right now. So if we get an injury to CCV or Scales, then you've got Murray, but that's pretty much it. I know Inamura as well, but it's not a great situation to be in when JSP is probably someone that we thought we were bringing in to maybe compete for that position beside CCV. Yet he's nowhere to be seen. So it'd be good to actually see what he can do. But at this moment, doesn't look anywhere near the game day squads.
No, it doesn't. It's a shame. It is a shame, Quinny. You do hear rumblings and all this kind of stuff, and sometimes that's all you've got actually to go on. The fact that the matter is, he's never kicked the ball for Celtic, and we're now in the middle of September. He's not in the Europa League squad, and he was left out yesterday. So I mean that's the facts of the matter, Quinny. So I'm pretty sure that wasn't in anyone's plan, was it?
No, and well, it's an odd one because when we signed him, he was the 5th centre back, and Brendan was on the record quite quickly saying he wants 5 centre backs. If you look at it now with the injury to Trusty, I wouldn't be surprised if we played Partick Thistle next week, Simpson-Pusey, to be honest with you. It's just whether Brendan makes that gamble with probably wanting the treble, a cup game. I know it's Thistle, but do you make that kind of risk in a cup situation where it is do or die? There's no redos. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. And I think, I think a lot of the chat's probably quite on the money. It's probably not something that the manager had really ID'd or really wanted, but I think the net gain out of this, like I said at the time when we signed him, is if you get Murray to really push on having that kind of that contemporary next to him of someone that's came from the top end Premier League who's a young up and coming player and using that as a yardstick to try and push him on, which it kind of feels like we've had so far this year, then I don't mind having him. If that's the gain, if that's the net outcome of it all, is that Murray kicks on and fulfills his potential. But it does just kind of hark back to the whole disjointed recruitment policy because we're covering some decent wages, you would think, considering his status in the squad at us and at City, to be a training participant, which, it's like, is that the best use of resources and funds and even time on the fax machine in the transfer window, because that came at a real premium, so yeah, it is a weird one, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do start to see him bled in for these heavy rotation moments that are about to come.
No, you're right, and that would be a good introduction, I think. Magnet 67, we are 10th place. No idea what you mean. Mm-hmm. WATP. And Paddy Lavery obviously giving the big man a shout out. Fair play, Big Sutton. Big Sutton doesn't have an agenda. I love it. I love the fact that he's just honest. He's brutal when he needs to be brutal. He's not scared of losing any kind of privilege in relation to the club. He calls it as he sees it. Pete, you're back in. Too soon to be suggesting Tunekte is a new hero. He looks like a genuine talent, but let's wait until he's played at least 10 games, shall we? Having said that, he reminds me of Jota. It would be great.
I think that's fair for both of them in terms of Tunekte. We don't want to get too overboard, after one appearance. And then likewise, you don't want to get too down on Balikwisha. We've seen with the likes of Nicholas Kuhn, they can have a slow start. The concern I've had with Balikwisha is more so the fact that he's not even looked like he's trying or wanting to take anyone on, playing far too safe. So everything that Tunekte was, Balikwisha has been the exact opposite now in 2 appearances. And he obviously cut him some slack. The first game was at Ibrox, with an underperforming team. And then yesterday playing on the wrong side again on a difficult surface. But you still want to see a bit, you see the confidence and bravery on the ball that Tunekte's showing. The thing is, though, he's came from a club where, the fans were sad to see him go, Balikwisha. So he's obviously, he must have something there that, that's normally a good gauge. When the Antwerp fans were saying that he'd be a loss to them, you'd think, okay, we're getting a player on. So maybe just needs a bit more time to get comfortable, and hopefully we can see a bit more from him. But the wide positions, at least we're looking a bit more stocked up anyway.
Without a doubt, yeah. And because it wasn't that long ago that we were delaying moves for the likes of Tillio and Yang, wasn't it? Iheanacho comes up, takes a penalty, and we're all smiling today as a result of this. But before that, let's talk about the penalty, because yesterday when we were covering the game, we had a resident referee who's now getting dogs abuse because I've revealed that he's a ref, Sean Conley, and he was talking about the reasons that he believed the penalty was actually given. I found it quite interesting after the game yesterday, Quinn. I don't know if you've seen it. It was Luke Shanley. Is it Shanley? Shanley on Sky Sports, and he asked Kettlewell his thoughts on it. And Kettlewell goes on about the advice that they'd been given, and everybody was kind of singing on off the same hymn sheet and all this kind of stuff. And then Luke read out the IFAB rules and said, "What do you think now?" I thought he led him up this garden path, and then he gave him the IFAB rules. So there's some comments coming through saying, "What about Callum McGregor's goal that was chopped off against him?" And I think it's looked at slightly differently, isn't it? I don't know when it comes to defending versus attacking.
Yeah, it is.
What do you reckon, Quinny? A or nay? Penalty?
100% a penalty, because when you see the angle as well, especially from behind the goal frame, the shot is on target. There's just no getting away from that, and a handball stops it. The goalkeeper's in no man's land, so I was listening to the breakdown last night. I heard Sean saying from a referee's perspective, he didn't, I found that quite confusing, because with the McGregor goal, and we've been victim to it before, if it directly influences a goal or no goal, deflections, natural body positions, time to react, all goes out the window, because if it's preventing or creating a goal, then it's all that other stuff doesn't matter. It's proper, it's like handball. So, I think, because the referee's been sent for the review. So I think the earpiece is saying to him something like, there's a handball. Did you see it? He's maybe said, I seen the handball, but it's not on target. And they've said, well, it is on target. Or he said it was on target, but there was no handball. And they've said, oh, there was a handball. Because the only thing he's going to check is, did it hit his hand or was it on target? There's nothing else for him to be checking there. So it's on target. It's an empty net. It's a handball. It's a penalty. There's just no grey area for me.
To be honest with you, Quinny, you've explained it better than I, because yesterday I said it was in favour of Celtic, therefore it was a penalty. Acsom, what was your take? and by the way, I was ready at that point in the 95th minute not to get that penalty. It had to be a penalty.
Totally.
No, but I think
I didn't think we were getting it. I'll be fair. Until he was sent for the review, I was like, nah, these are the kind that we won't get. They'll say it's too close proximity, all that. But as Quinny says, when you simplify it in terms of the rules, and from what we're led to believe now, is the thing with the handball situation is they've changed it so much over the years, haven't they? You just don't know anymore what's the actual a bit of clarity on it, and it seems like obviously Luke Shanley gave that clarity to Kettlewell. What was the response? I didn't actually catch it.
It just kind of goes up, we're going to have to revisit the message we were given and all this kind of stuff.
But it's been a strange weekend in terms of refereeing decisions. Obviously over at Ibrox, you've seen some decisions going against them. So it's not often that's the case, but I think it was the right decision. I think anyone watching that and reviewing it, and then when you look at the rule, I think it was a clear penalty. As Quinny says, the ball's going in and the hand's out. It's not by his side. He's stopped a goal. So yeah, clear penalty. And I don't know about you guys, but I was like, right, who's going to take this? Obviously, after our last couple of penalty shootouts, we've not got Engels, we've not got Ida. You're thinking who's going to step up, and I know there's been chat that Negrin wanted it, which makes sense. But I was delighted that the way it panned out. I think for Kelechi, after all the chat and obviously all the doubts, myself included, in terms of the signing. It's a game changer when you come on, 10 minutes to go, you save the day, last kick of the ball, you have that confidence to get up, because he could easily have just let it slide and let Benjamin take it, but for him to do that and get the winning goal, I think it'll do him a world of good.
Without a doubt. And you look at Ian Atchell, we all know the circumstances around him coming to the football club. Quinny obviously wasn't on our radar probably till late on. The Rodgers Rolodex had to come out. We had to, and he's a player that since working with Rodgers, his career's obviously gone a bit off piste, isn't it? I mean, it's not gone to plan. And you look at the dynamic of that, and you think to yourself, well, like I was saying last week, time for Rodgers just to, he knows what he's got now, time to knuckle down up until January and squeeze as much as he can out of the squad. And bizarrely enough, we're probably in the running for a number of, we know some of the names, a number of different strikers. Yet we've got a player here that if Rodgers can tap into him, because I didn't think he was great until the penalty, but that's by the by. If he can tap into the undoubted raw talent that he's got, then you might end up with a free agent and it could be a brilliant bit of business. Under the circumstances, it seemed like we were running about with our hair on fire looking for a striker, but I think he might have pulled one out of the bag, and I hope he has. And it's a great start for him, Quinny.
He's definitely pulled one out the phone book, hasn't he? No two ways about it. I think, we're all quite deflated with Iheanacho when he signed because of just the circumstances and the context around everything. But I don't think anyone questioned, if he can get up to speed. This is a guy that hits the back of the net. He's a finisher, and that's what we really need. And when you compare that to other guys that we've brought in and they've not quite worked out, he's got a lot more of a track record. Premier League winner, of course, and everything he done with Rodgers at Leicester, European runs and all the rest of it. But everywhere he's been to in his career to this point, he's never been the main man. He's never been the first choice centre forward. I think when Leicester signed him, that was kind of part of the idea, because I think Vardy was maybe on his way to Arsenal around that time, or might have been moving on. Obviously, that didn't happen. And then going to Sevilla, he was never the main man. I don't know really what happened there. Sevilla have been bit of a basket case for a year or two on and off the pitch. So it is one of those ones where we are worried because it's a guy that's not in a good space, and it's like the only guy we're signing up front. So I think we're all a bit nervous. But like I said, this is a guy that, he said as well, if you listen to his interview, he's been aware of Celtic and he's always paid attention and followed. We've been linked to him in the past, and it does feel like the sort of striker that would really work well for us. A guy that wants to finish, wants to be the main man, is ready to kind of do it in that stage of his career. And again, a comparison I drew when we made the signing was Scott Sinclair. The guy was nowhere in the world of football when we signed him. He had just been dying on that City bench and had a loan stint at Villa that went nowhere. And this guy's career isn't really too dissimilar in a lot of ways. And Scott Sinclair, player of the year in the league in his first year, I think he was. And for the 2 or 3 years we had him, was unreal, sensational. So great start. And Rodgers has been on record as saying he doesn't need strikers to score goals. I'm pretty sure he's going to change that rhetoric. If Iheanacho keeps scoring, he'll talk about how we really need that and it's really changed the team and what a difference and da-da-da. So happy to have him in and good to see the goal going in.
Without a doubt. Sensational indeed. Tobias Juganis, Lowell not at the game. What's people's take on that? We're going to touch on the whole situation surrounding the action and the protest. But before we do it, gents, I mentioned this yesterday, but I know there are people who don't watch the match day stuff and vice versa. So I'm going to put it out there again. Luke McCowan comes on as a sub, Acsom, and there was a story last week on PLZ from Andrew H. Smith talking about how he was a Dermot Desmond signing. I was speaking to someone involved in the deal on Friday to take Luke McCowan to Celtic, and Dermot Desmond had nothing to do with it. So all the twos and fro's, forwards and backwards, were between Craig and Gordon Strachan. Gordon working on behalf of Dundee, Craig at Celtic. But the actual deal obviously was done with the agent of the player and Michael Nicholson, who incidentally left the room a few times to speak to somebody else. Don't know if that was Peter Lowell though. So basically what happened was they came to loggerheads because Hibs and Celtic had offered £800,000, and Dundee wanted £1 million, and Luke didn't want to sign for Hibs, so he was sent away home. Celtic says they weren't budging on 800 grand. We're talking 200 grand here, guys. Honestly, they could have just raked in the back of Dermot Desmond's couch in the boardroom and they'd have probably found it, right? 200 grand we're talking about here. Anyway, Luke gets sent away home. He's on his way home and his agent phones him and tells him to turn back round because Celtic have upped the offer to $1 million. He comes in and he signs. But it just shows you, Acsom, that a lot of the information flying about, even though it's a nice soundbite and we could use that in evidence against the involvement of Dermot Desmond in deals, it turns out it wasn't true.
Yeah, that's the importance of making sure, like, when these stories are leaked, that it's with reputable sources and it's, fact checked and stuff like that, because you hear those kind of things and then people go off on tangents as to what the reality is. So no, it's good that's been cleared up from your source. And but in terms of the deal itself, it sums us up, doesn't it? That's what Celtic's kind of mantra is. It's always trying to get the best deal, rather in terms of, like, it's a monetary thing always. They want to try and show that we didn't budge from 800,000, rather than look at it in the grand scheme of things that an extra 200,000, you can get that deal done a lot quicker and smoother, and just makes a whole lot of difference. Even when we hear the chat about Dahlberg and how those kind of negotiations went, same with the Danish winger from Go Ahead Eagles. It's just a common theme throughout the years of how Celtic go about their negotiations, go about their business, and it's quite embarrassing now, because you have guys from other clubs, chairmen and directors and all that. They kind of vocally saying exactly that what we all know. So yeah, nothing surprising there with regards to that kind of stuff.
And by the way, this isn't a dig at Andrew or Celtic Underground. I've got huge respect for both the platform, which is the longest running football podcast on the planet, by the way. What an accolade that is. And Andrew as well. Brilliant when he was at The View. He was brilliant with us, actually, when he worked for the Scotsman. And he's now working alongside the Underground boys. But it was just to try and clarify that because I think they were quite keen. The interested parties were quite keen to clarify that point. And it wasn't to try and support them at Desmond either. Let's touch on the press conference then. But we've not dug into this, Quinny, because on Friday, I was in one of my favourite places to go and speak to Celtic fans, and that was Greenock. And everybody from Greenock goes, why do you love this place so much? But I do. I just love the drive and, you're on the water and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, we had a great night in Greenock. And on the way home, I realised that it took ages for Celtic to upload it onto their YouTube page, I think, the press conference. Jim Orr was representing Acsom at the press conference. He asked a really pertinent question as well. Got a good response from Brendan. But I realised that the aforementioned Celtic Underground had uploaded it in full, in its entirety, audio. So I listened to that on my way home, and it was box office Brendan, wasn't it, Quinny?
It was good. I normally do a Friday stream, kind of looking over the week and maybe previewing the game that's coming up after we've had the press conference. It normally comes out around 3:00 in the afternoon, and I know that because I've got like fantasy football stuff to do that needs to be done by 3, and normally I'm waiting for that press conference to come out to find out if Tierney's in the team or whatever, that kind of stuff. So it didn't come out until like, I can't remember the time now, but I think it was like 6:15 or something like that. It was like way later than normal. And I think we were all expecting it to be highly edited. I've just went to check it. It's a 30-minute press conference. I was live on Friday for an hour and 5 minutes, pausing and going through it, and the chat had a great time going through it. And box office Brendan is the only way to describe it. He did a great job of subtly getting out there some bits and bobs. And what's the guy's name? Gannon from The Record. Like he's definitely like, he's in Brendan's good books. You can tell there's
he's a Celtic man, Quinny. I've got to give him a shout out.
Is that Michael? You got name checked a couple of times, didn't you?
Yeah. So I don't know if I don't know if I'd go as far as to say anything was coordinated or whatever, but I did feel that there was some good engagement with his questions, and there was that's where the revealing topics seemed to come from. So it was brilliant from start to finish, and Acsom mentioned it earlier. He really nailed the tone of everything. He was being honest and candid with stuff without shirking away from the fact that we should have beaten Kairat and other stuff. So yeah, I think from start to finish it was really good. And I can't remember what it was, but there's something he said really early in the press conference, and it was something like somebody had asked him a question about the board and all that stuff, and he said something. There will be an executive review or whatever. And at that point, I was saying to everyone in the chat, "That's it, guys. Confirmation. The first domino was falling." Because like he's telling us they're reviewing it, and it's an executive. It's not the club. It's not the manager, the players, and we'll find out about it in the coming weeks. Was something to the tune he said. So it was a great press conference and lots of meat on the bones to read between the lines on.
No, without a doubt. Acsom, I've got to be honest with you. Normally, these kind of pre-match press conferences or post-match press conferences, people who are the manager of the football club doing it twice a week just go through the motions. But when Brendan's on form, I mean, he never misses, does he?
No, Jim will have enjoyed that one. I've had the pleasure through yourself to have been invited along to a couple of these, and Brendan's usually good form, but you're right. Sometimes run-of-the-mill ones, there's nothing overly edgy coming out. But I think this one was a masterpiece, really, from start to finish and everything. And as Quinny mentioned, I'm glad that he was quick to point out his own failings in terms of like we should have won that game, and he referenced particularly the home tie against Kairat. So he wasn't shirking any blame there. But everything else, I thought he was just perfect. He hit the tone. And as Quinny wasn't so sure, but I think a lot of it was orchestrated. It seemed, when they asked him about, sounds like where that's came from regarding the insider briefing, and in the way
that was a real push of a question. You've got to be brave to say that. You know what I mean? So has he been given the nods? Like push, you know what I mean? Like push me.
And in fairness to Jim, you mentioned Paul John, but even just the media in general, I thought the questions were good. I thought it was a really engaging press conference. I've watched it back a couple of times because I don't think it wasn't an easy one for him to deal with, but yeah, it was just it was really good to hear the manager even talk about when they asked him about his future, and I thought that was really interesting, and I believe it. And again, I could be a fool again for getting lulled into the Brendan charm, but I genuinely believe he wants to stay under the right conditions. And he said as much. He wants to be at this club, and he wants to take the club, drive it to the next step, take it forward. But he has to have the backing. He has to have alignment. And yeah, I agree with Quinny. It sounded like he knows in the background something's going to happen. And what that is, hopefully we'll find out soon enough.
But
He's never spoken as well about like beyond this contract. He's been very quick. Oh, I'll be here for 3 years, 150. And then whenever he's been asked before about beyond that, he's always just like skirted past it. But on Friday, it was the first time he'd really said like, I would, but there would have to be, he says like quite explicitly, there would need to be conditions and stuff agreed on and da-da-da.
Yeah,
and that's the first time again he's spoken like that, like as, you know, front-footed.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we know that there's been a lot of strong words spoken over the last few weeks. You only need to, I've got it right here, you need to bring it up here with regards to the fan survey that was conducted by the fan consultation group, as yet unnamed. Hopefully there'll be a name for that this week. And one of the potential objectives, would you endorse a call for the removal of, and for Michael Nicholson, Chief Executive, yes, 99.3%. Chris Mackay, Celtic's Chief Financial Officer, 98.5%, and Peter Lawwell, Celtic Chairman, 98.8%. So a resounding consensus want them removed from that particular survey. And when you look at whoever it was, because we don't know at the moment, right? You can speculate, whoever it was that fed the Sun that rag, a story which was a hit piece on Brendan Rodgers, that is a sackable offence. It's as simple as that. So you can have a look at, right, what happened is there's an open letter signed by 420 plus fan groups, all the major associations and affiliations putting their name to it. And then there's the hit piece on Brendan, and then there's that statement on Saturday night, you know, and it's like everything starts to just kind of fall. The dominoes are falling, right? Then he's asked about it, and he gives that response where he's bigging up Mackay, he's bigging up Nicholson, he's even bigging up Dermot Desmond. He's not bigging up Peter Lawwell. Lawwell's not getting any kudos whatsoever during that interview. So I think the message was loud and clear. Peter Lawwell was not at the game yesterday. I don't know why he wasn't at the game. Did he think that, you know what, but because he's sitting next to Michael Nicholson, who the fans more overwhelmingly want rid of, Michael Nicholson, based on the 40,000 survey there, and he's not turned up. He's not been there. So do you reckon things will happen this week, guys? I mean, if it does, right? I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot, because I'm absolutely invested in the fan movement, 100%, and we will do what we can to spread the word and engage with other fan media platforms, and you know, we'll be able to coordinate that across social media and across different channels, Quinny. And when all the fan media guys come together, it's got a powerful voice. You know, you've got a lot of people watching all the different shows, and I think, you know, at this point, and I know what the objectives are here, but I just think you start off by removing Peter Lawwell. Now, he'll probably step down, or he'll be removed, and it'll say that he's moved for personal reasons, whatever it might be. You then apologise to the fans. You actually apologise. You come out and you look at that statement that you released last Saturday, you realise how much of a disaster it was, because they've not come back out yet. This is the thing. They've not even responded to the open letter yet. So you've got to come out and you've got to communicate, because that was wrong, that statement. And then you set up what I would say reparations. So you set up meetings with a group, and the group might be able to send over a very, very condensed steering group, you know, of representatives, a committee as such, and send them along to speak to the club to see how this can be resolved. And, you know, I can't see every single thing that is demanded or asked for being given. That doesn't happen, right? But you need to meet us somewhere in the middle. What do you think's going to happen this week, guys?
I like we all know what we want to see. We spoke about it before, Paul John, as well. It's like we've had the same figures running the show for what, decades and decades. There's no fresh voices, and there's nothing different in there. It's an echo chamber of all. They all think the same, so they don't think they've done anything wrong here. And as much as maybe one of them might go, and whether that's Peter Lawwell, is that going to really change the thinking and change the mentality in the boardroom. You know, we all again don't know the ins and outs of the Don Mackay stuff because, you know, again, there's never any kind of communication on these things. But you'd be intrigued to know actually what happened there, whether he was competent or not. Is, you know, is a separate question. But it just seems that anyone coming in with fresh ideas, anyone coming in that wants to shake things up a bit, is not going to be looked upon positively in that boardroom. So removing one figure as a start, you're right. Whether that will be, I don't know. You asked the question there. Do you think we'll see something happen this week? Don't know. Like I said, Brendan sounded like there's going to be some kind of review. I don't know if that's going to be Peter Law that's going to be removed. I just think his ego and his influence is still far too much for them to kind of make it quite clear then if he is the one that's removed that he's been the issue. I don't know what your take on it, Quinny, is, but I don't know if it'll be as simple as just Peter Law getting removed.
Yeah, I don't really know. That's the point I always stop at, is like explicitly naming names on who needs to get sacked. I've been quite open with somebody needs to get sacked. I'm even the chat's bringing it up again, but I thought some guy Wilson or Hughes or whatever might have been some people were speculating he might have been the leak to the Sun or something like that as well. So it's a hard one to really pin the tail on the donkey with. It feels like the powers that be inside should really know who the donkey is to be pinning the tail on. And I think that, like Paul John said, like it's not even just about the act itself, but it's the repercussions, the reparations thereafter. Because the thing with it being stale, like, you know, everyone's kind of highlighting the same people have been in charge for however long, and is that, you know, the benefit you get in football when you sign a guy, even like Iheanacho, who's played at the Premier League, and even Simpson-Pusey to an extent, what I was mentioning with money, when you bring in guys from a higher level into our club to do whatever job they're going to do, they bring something with them. They bring a different level of expectation, a different standard of work, and they are going to be exposed to stuff that hasn't yet reached Scottish football because these leagues are at the real cutting edge of everything. And yeah, they might not, they might be ignorantly neglectful or whatever. They might not know what they don't know, unconsciously incompetent or whatever it's called. And, you know, if we hired like one or two guys into the board, somebody that's been at Southampton and somebody that's been at Newcastle or whatever, it's just that new, it's not even just it's a new person, it's a new voice, but it's actually like new ideas, new processes. Like, oh, you guys aren't even using X, or why have you not even started this, you know, arm of the you know, whatever. And when you've got the same guys in for 20, 25 years, they're not going back to school. They're not networking with up and coming thought leaders in the industry and all the rest of it. You know, they're clocking in, clocking out. You know, is it the summer holidays yet? Have we paid dividends? Is the transfer window open?
When's the next European jolly?
Yeah. You know what I mean? They're just on that Groundhog Day cycle. And I think it's, you know, Alex Ferguson gets all the credit for doing this with assistant managers, but you see it in all sorts of other walks of life where, yeah, like, so, don't get me wrong, if like Nicholson, just to use some names, right? Nicholson, Mackay and Desmond are going to be here for 25 years. There needs to be 3 or 4 other key members of the team that turn over 2 years, 5-year cycles, 6-year cycles, whatever, to bring in fresh expertise, new ideas, and keep the moving forward off the pitch as proactively as on the pitch.
Also, what was the point of Peter Tisdale? Like, what has he done or brought to the table, or is there any kind of communication again on his role and impact? Like, what?
That for me, Acsom, is one of the biggest open goals ever, because we spoke about that fan forum, didn't we? The fans forum, and you're thinking to yourself, well, live stream it, film it at least, give us the vision of Paul Tisdale, give us an idea into the vision of the football department, because we never get told these things as fans. Now, I sometimes think that's misinterpreted when we're talking about communication. We need to know more, because when you look at that statement, it's almost as if they think we're demanding that they keep us up to date with negotiations with individual players. No. That's a nonsense, right? Tell us about the academy, what your plans are for Barrowfield, your plans are for the stadium, your plans are for recruitment. Paul Tisdale, what's his role? And you know, what's he implemented? What's Sean Maloney's role? What's he implemented? All this kind of stuff absolutely should be content. Quinny, I mean, you're a content creator. That is absolute gold dust. Get it on a video and put it out on your channel. And at the same time, what you're doing, as well as creating content, you're communicating with your fan base, you know, and you're telling, like, ask them all these months down the line, you're saying, what is he doing? What's his results been? You know, whose man is he? I would love to know that. It wouldn't
surprise me if he's the fall guy, because it's an easy one. It's the easy one for them.
Well, Mark Lawwell was the fall guy previously, although we were advised that he left of his own volition. I mean, these are the things, again, Asim, that it's all about cloak and dagger. We need to be more open, transparent. We need to communicate better. Absolute given. What Quinny says there in terms of a freshness, I think we need a reset. I think there's so much good things about Celtic as a football club, right? And everybody on the last couple of weeks have basically said, what are you guys moaning about? Every time I speak to somebody in the broadcast, what are you moaning about? You've won 13 out of 14. That seems to be the default position. It's a lot deeper than that. It's a lot, in fact, it's a lot more nuanced than that. You know, you look at the stadium, it looks resplendent behind Asim there, but actually, you look under the bonnet of that stadium, major reinvestment required. You look at the team on the park, now averaging the highest average age since 2003, our squad. That's a worry, right? You look at the academy and the lack of players that we are actually producing for Celtic. That's not working. Why is there not been a massive reset in there? There's certain names, and I'm not going to throw them out just yet because, again, it's unfair to the people in the positions, Quinny, but there's certain names I get told about who do have links to Celtic, who should be in our academy, who are absolutely tearing it up in youth football, as coaches, by the way, tearing it up, and they should be in at Celtic, and they're not. They're nowhere near a football club. So there's lots and lots to happen, I'm pretty sure. But just as a reminder to anyone who came in late, these are the kind of things you've got to do. So back in the 90s, right, Matt McCowan and his team had the tickers. They were counting fans going through the turnstiles so that we knew exactly what the attendance was, and the board couldn't change the number. I seen a report this morning in the Herald where they were downplaying the impact of the Celtic fans' action. There was 815 people took their seats before the 12th minute. That is a fact. They've been counted. That is an absolute cast iron fact. 815 fans took their seats from a 3,835 ticket allocation. So it was a 75-25 split. And there's going to be an announcement which we'll share across all the different media channels, the fan media channels tonight, just to put that out there, just to reclaim the narrative. Because if you don't, someone will run with the fact that there was 2,000 fans in there, Quinny, when there wasn't. Prior to the 12th minute. So there we go. I'll tell you what, it's been an absolute pleasure getting Asim back in. That is some front line. I'm glad Asim said that I was made. That his new hairdo could even be worse than mine. And obviously you're the guy with the flair, Quinny, down the left wing. Hopefully we see more of that. And we will be back tomorrow at 12:30 unless we need an emergency podcast tonight. Not that I've heard that any decisions will be made that soon. Thanks everybody for getting involved. Give us a thumbs up. Got a couple of gigs coming up and the ticket links are under the video. Always a pleasure. Thanks to Quinny and Asim for joining me on the Celtic State of Mind.